Light, what was prior to the light? Darkness. So here we see the God Ptah being jet black. Show before the Jehovah God creating Adam out of the clay of the earth, our ancestors had the God Canaan creating man out of clay right here on the potter's wheel. These are stories that our ancestors had, many creation stories, where people came in like vultures and picked at various creation stories down through the ages. So again, brothers and sisters, it's up out of the African Nile Valley that we're going to go today. Let's get into the land of Ethiopia, because this is the first nation that is spoke of in the Bible. So let's deal with this nation that is still in the Bible today. Let's first go to Webster's dictionary. Interesting enough, we have Ethiopia. Right above Ethiopia, you can always find the root of the word. We have ethics, the science which studies man's morals, duties, and principles. So man's morals and duties and principles is in the land of Ethiopia. Ethiopia, an ancient country in northeastern Africa, the official English form of the native name of modern Abyssinia. Ethiopian, of or relating to Ethiopia or its inhabitants, of or relating to or designating Negro. Keep in mind, Negro is a Portuguese term. That's not a name imposed of African people, but clearly we see where Ethiopia is. It's all Africa. So now that they know that you know where the Garden of Eden is, now let's see what's going to happen here. Now, King James Version, Genesis chapter 2, verse 13, and the name of the second river is Gihon, the same as it that compasses the whole land of what? Ethiopia. Okay, that's the King James Version of the Bible that was written in 1611 AD. Now, although that Bible was changed, it's been changing down through the ages. Now God's going to send us a new Bible express from heaven. Express mail now is called the New American Bible. And in the New American Bible it says, and the name of the second river is Gihon, the same as it that winds all through the land of Cush. They changed Ethiopia to Cush. But those of us who know the ancient history of Ethiopia knows that Cush goes back to the ancient name Kish, and Cush is the Hebrew name for Ethiopia, right? But the footnote at the bottom it says, the land of Cush here in 10 and 8 is not Ethiopia now, as elsewhere, but the region of the Kishites east of Mesopotamia. So now you got Negroes who are going to the cemetery school or seminary school who don't have an African-centered point of view, are going to be looking for Ethiopia and the land of the Kishites east of Mesopotamia. Where is the land of the Kishites east of Mesopotamia? Let's go after it. Using their Now let's look at this. Here's the map. Cush says right here, Ethiopia, right? Yes. Well, let me show you what white folks have done. They have taken Ethiopia up out of Africa, moved it east. Here's Mesopotamia. East of Mesopotamia is the land of the Ashkenazi European Jews from the Caucasus Mountains. Because we are told that circumcision came by way of Abraham. He was the first one supposedly circumcised Isaac, if you're a Hebrew, and Ishmael if you're a Muslim. And Genesis chapter 17, verse 10 and 11, it says, Jehovah says, this is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you, and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. So here we see that supposedly from this account, this is how circumcision started. But we can go back to the 6th dynasty of Ankh-Mahor and to the rites of initiation into manhood, showing the pulling back of the foreskin, showing circumcision was known long before Abraham came into the African Nile Valley. So hundreds of years before Abraham knew this custom of circumcision, it was already going on in the African Nile Valley. Let's go look at some of the other customs of Joseph. Often quoted as a striking Egyptian parallel to the biblical story of Potiphar's wife's attempted seduction is the tale of the two brothers from the 19th dynasty Abini Papyrus. It says right here in the Abini Papyrus, let's look at the comparison between our ancestors' papyrus and Joseph, and so see how this story was plagiarized from our African ancestors. Then she, the older brother's wife, talked with him, saying, there is great strength in you. Now I see your energies every day. And she wanted to know him as one knows a man. Then she stood up and took hold of him and said to him, come, let's spend an hour sleeping together. Then the lad became like a leopard with great rage at the wicked suggestion which she had made to him. See here, your husband is like a father to me. what is this great crime which you have said to me? Let's look at Joseph now. Now, Joseph was handsome and good looking, and a time came when his master's wife took notice of him and said, "Come, lie with me." But he refused and said to her, "Think of my master. He has entrusted me with all he has. How can I do anything so wicked?" Literally plagiarized. Let's go to the Europeans' own documentation in the video, the Bible and the history, to see what they also have to say about the enslavement of the Jews.
This is a health warning. If you want to go down to Egypt to look for Abraham and all his family, to continue the intellectual journey of the book of Genesis, then leave the cinema behind you. Its vision of ancient Egypt, based on Victorian paintings like this one. Egypt never enslaved other nations, nor did it build pharaohs' tombs with foreign slaves. This tells you a lot about the 19th century, but almost nothing about ancient Egypt.
John chapter 8, they say, we be of Abraham's seed. We were never in bondage to any man. Huh? So they're saying themselves that they were never in bondage to any man. Who were the oracles talking about saying that you would be enslaved for 400 years? We go back to it because Josephus, as I said earlier, he says, it is now clear that unfree labor slaves did not play a role in Egyptian society during the Old Kingdom. In fact, for the Jewish people to have played any kind of role in the Old Kingdom is an impossibility, for there is no record of their existence until around 1674 BC. Josephus, who lived around 37 to 100 AD, Jewish statesman and historian, commented that the Hyksos were the ancestors of the Israelites. As modern historians will now attest, this fact is undoubtedly true. The Hyksos invaded Lower Egypt following the 13th dynasty. They pillaged and destroyed thousands of statues, maimed and killed an undisclosed number of Egyptian inhabitants, and mercifully raped the women of the kingdom. Doesn't that sound like a familiar account? Yeah. This domination of Lower Egypt persisted for 2 centuries. Evidence from the Sinai, biblical Exodus, a myth, archaeologists suggest. Evidence from the recent excavations in the Sinai desert indicate there was no exodus by the Jews from Egypt, and Israeli archaeologist says. Eliezer Orm, a Ben Gurion University professor, you can't get no more Ashkenazi Jewish than that, who from 1972 to 1982 oversaw the excavations of 80 sites in the Sinai Peninsula, land bridge that links to present-day Egypt and Israel, said his research indicates that Egypt controlled the area during the time when the Exodus generally supposed to have occurred around 1300 to 1275 BC. Showing right here, they're saying it themselves, the biblical Exodus was nothing but a myth in their own secret hierarchy of rabbi.
The main purpose of the Exodus story is not to describe history. The main purpose of the Exodus story, as it was created by the pre-scribes who lived in Jerusalem, was to glorify their God and to make their God look greater than any other God. And what they used was a series of old legends and distorted memories which they put together to create this story which has no relationship to history.
This is Medu Neter, the Medu Neter of our African ancestors, and see why they don't want us to know our story. This symbol means Ursa. Ursa, Ma'at Ra, Septepen Ra, Neptui Sarah. That language sounds good, don't it? That's our language, boy. Now, what does it mean? Why they don't want you to mess with Kemet? Let's break the name down now. Ursa means power. Of Ma'at, meaning truth, justice, and righteousness. Of Ra, meaning God. Neb means Lord of the 2 lands, Upper and Lower Egypt. Okay? Key point right here. Septepen Ra. What does Septepen Ra mean? Chosen by God. European Jews took the concept of God's chosen children out of Ursa Ma'at Ra Septepen Ra's name and called themselves God's chosen children. That's why they don't want us to deal with Kemet. Huh? Better than none, I suppose. But other stories of the judgment scene on the papyrus here showing Oni being led by a horse. We didn't worship the animals. The falcon represented the sun because it flew in the sky all day. Showing where as he comes and leads him into the spiritual realm, notice as he comes before the great god Asaru and the canopy, he bows down and his hair turns white. Do you know of another story that another man who went on top of a mountain and his hair turns white right here, Moses, where he meets God on top of Mount Sinai or Mount Horeb? They haven't made up their mind what mountain it was. And supposedly God is in a burning bush. A burning bush. Now, if you was talking to God in a burning bush, they would call you animate. And supposedly his hair turns white, copied it from the papyrus of Hunefer, showing where Oni's hair turns white when he came before the god Asaru. Just like James would run through the court and grab young boys' buttocks and so forth. So the Pope of Rome, he rebelled against James behind this, and James said, later for Rome, we'll write our own Bible. We're the king of this day. So he got Sir Francis Bacon, Henry Saville, and others to sit down to write the King James Version of the Bible. That's why it says the Holy Bible containing the Old and New Testaments translated out of the original tongues, and with the former translations diligently compared and revised. Diligently compared and revised. All these Bibles down through the ages is what he's talking about. Commonly known as the authorized King James Version. His version. Tell you on the first page, King James Version. Then they brought us on some ships called the Good Ship Jesus, the Grace of God, and the Holy Mary, where the ship docked at Jamestown, Virginia. And then they gave us the King James Version, where it's a manipulation and distortion, meaning that there's some things in there we need to know, but there's some things in there that we don't need to know. But you need to know your story first before you go after this book. Then you can have critical, analytical analysis in reading the book. We go and look at Proverbs. The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. Can't go to Mount Moriah and find Solomon's temple nowhere in Jerusalem. Just a feel, they say Solomon's temple used to be here. When you go to Africa, there's no used to be's. But where they get this concept from? Where they get this concept from? Showing the hypostyle halls and the holies of the holies where the ark was placed. Where they get this concept from? Right up from Africa, showing Karnak, or Waret as our ancestors called it. Showing the hypostyle halls and the holies of the holies all the way in the back of the temple where the ark was placed. Showing you that's why they give you a picture version, because they were copying it from you. But yet, Masons run around talking about they are the Grand Master builder. Solomon was the Grand Master builder. But yet you can't go nowhere and find Solomon's temple. Why can't the Grand Master, not the Grand Master, but why can't the Masons come back here? Huh? The Eastern Stars and the Elks fellows and the Odd fellows and all of them, why can't they come back here? And see, they had nothing to do with Solomon. It was taken right off from African people. In fact, the ark was placed in the back of the temple and the holies of the holies. And it was the portable god house of Amun, where the high priest of Amun would carry the ark known as the Opet Festival. And they would carry it to the next temple of Waset, known as Luxor, to meet his wife Mut, showing the union of the god and the goddess. This is what our African ancestors taught. And Europeans came and copied and corrupted this story of the ark. And we find it, the ark right there, carved on the temples in the holies of holies right there in Kemet. And you see the cherubims, as it's called in the Bible, and the god Amun, not Jehovah, communing between the two cherubims who are on the mercy seat, which the mercy seat was placed on the ark. Let's go to the Bible and see where they literally copied this. In Exodus it says, verse 25 through 20 and 22, and the cherubim shall stretch forth their wings on high, covering the mercy seat. With their wings and their faces shall look one to another. Isn't that what you see right here? Their faces shall look one to another. Is that what you see right there?
Yes. Right.
Okay. So it goes on to say, toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubims be. And thou shalt put the mercy seat upon above the ark, and in the ark thou shalt put the testimony that I shall give thee. Verse 22, and there I will meet with thee, and I will commune with thee from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubims which are upon the ark. Jehovah God saying, I will commune with thee from between the two cherubims which are upon the ark. Where they get it from? The God, not Jehovah, but Amun-Ra, communing between the two cherubims which are upon the ark. Nearly copied from your African ancestors.